In late 2021, he was nearly brought to the pad by John Brzenk, who had just come out of retirement. That round was more than sufficient to tell me that Devon has nothing for Levon. Then post-Levon, he was stretched out by Prudnik in round 1, only but still. And now fast forward a few months and he's stonewalling guys like Dave, and Gennady couldn't even budge him from center in a hook. And then, after that, he fucking flash-pinned Hermes and didn't even lose center once against Hermes, who was the guy that stopped Levon and nearly beat him. Larratt will continue to get stronger and stronger now that his injuries are healing. Maybe he might get a round or two off Levon when they face again.
Where are you?
Supplementation and therapy. Devon goes through a few more cycles of stem cells, then versus Gennady, then versus Dave. Now he has smoked Hermes. It's just a straight and true natural progressions. He gets stronger as the months go by. So now, Devon has his strongest riser, pronator, in hand he has ever had. He has been training those for 10 plus years now. Now his elbow is healed due to stem cells. He can arm wrestle the way he has been arm wrestling since the late 1990s, early 2000s, inside high hook. We now have the most complete package, prime Devon ever, with more skill and experience than his youth, maybe not as much endurance, stamina, mobility, speed, and agility as he used to have. But those are all secondary athletic variables. Arm wrestling at its core is primarily a strength-based combat sport. Devon's style. I think it's time to consider whether Devon's much criticized training methodology, micro movements, ultra, high-frequency, massive table time volume, and single-arm specialist is the real deal. Devon completely transformed his level. Although I think he also changed up his supplementation pretty massively in the last few years. Devon's training is heavily on the isometric, static side of weight resistance training, while other arm wrestlers are typically doing a larger ratio of eccentric and concentric movements when it comes to resistance training. It seems Devon gets most of his range of motion during table time, or when he is doing his accessory rehabilitative resistance bands. I assume that's how he keeps relatively decent health through his joints, as doing nothing but heavy isometrics would give him worse T-Rex arms than he already has. When he leaves a match, especially after a loss, he takes away where and why he failed, looking at what is in his control and improving it, so his self-accountability drives his improvement. He's smart. Devon has such a deep understanding of arm wrestling and how to win with his hand and arm and strengths. He knows how to set up to gain advantage and how to adjust during a match for success. His arm strength is also definitely in the top 3 of all time, in my opinion. The way he handled Hermes and flopped him to the pad, and then out of the straps too, looked pretty good. And then the final flash pin also. All this isn't possible with just hand strength. Then a few months ago, he went hook on hook with Gennady, who was said to have a super strong arm, and Devon beat him and even flash pinned him in a hook. We underestimate his arm too much, in my opinion. He definitely has a stronger arm than Dave and Hermes. Pinning Devon as fast as possible seems like the best strategy. But such strategy against a longer opponent requires much stronger wrist. Essentially, both offensive and defensive top roll was a no-go for Hermes. And on top of that, Devon had perfect counter for flop press. Devon is a bad style matchup because of all those factors combined, not just because of his long levers. Singles. The lifts Devon Larratt performs are rather astounding. He isolates the muscles used in arm wrestling quite effectively. Devon holds the pronation world record by over 70 kilos. His arm strength really benefits from this. His pronator is so powerful that it can take a lot of the opponent's force. In general, the stronger the wrist, the last link in the chain is, the less your arm needs to compensate. Devon's wrist has such powerful rise in pronation that this overwhelming combination disperses the opponent's arm strength. It's interesting because it highlights how incredibly strong Devon is in that particular area. And we all know the impact of that on the table in conjunction with his riser, and I guess bicep too, since he maintains 90 degrees in his left. If you have lengthy levers compared to you opponent, the rise is critical. If you don't, you must exert sufficient side and back pressure to mitigate. Contrasting styles make the best fights and afford the greatest unpredictability in arm wrestling clashes. Just imagine how Ermi's 92 kilos back pressure disappeared in front of Devon's hand. This is ridiculous. Devon drove Ermi sideways with his side pressure. Levon himself couldn't do that shit. Devon's side pressure. Devon's side pressure has increased remarkably since his stem cells therapy and thanks to the heavy singles. Look at this footage from 4 years ago. Notice the way he lifted 145 pounds with pure side pressure and pronation for 3 reps. Devon already has that strong base long time ago. The difference is that he's more efficient nowadays. He knows how to get into positions where he can use more musculature than his rivals. Devon only shows videos of him when he lifts light for high reps. Devon is the king of trolling.
All the while keeping your own hands pronation. New record.
I want to highlight this triceps lift. He can press significant numbers in this specific exercise. This is how he was able to press the second strongest biceps behind Levon. He puts the belt under his wrist. This activates the ulnar deviation, which lengthens the lever and makes it even more difficult. The thing is, your body can handle about 25% more weight on the way down. They could just go to 10% higher than their 1 rep max.
There. See that guy behind you? Look over your right shoulder. Look over your right shoulder. Yeah, don't call nothing on him.
Current Devon's arm strength. Also, Devon seems to be a lot better now than he was back then thanks to stem cell. Devon fought Brzenk not long before Levon. Brzenk nearly pinned him. In comparison, now Devon is able to stonewall both Dave and Ermi's. When the opponent overpowers Devon in the center, Devon's first move is a king's move. There is no need for the king's move if he can crack the opponent's wrist after the ready go. Since the opponent's wrist is cracked, he will be able to take all of the hits. So unless he is flop pressed, it won't be too difficult for him. He stares at his opponent and understands that he doesn't have much left in the tank. At that time, a new game starts. Since Devon has the high ground, he is already in excellent position, high and deep when he cups his wrist to initiate the high hook. Slowly moves his elbow to the back of the pad while moving his shoulder forward. The loveliest aspect is that he can still pronate while in that safe position, and he also has an active riser. The triceps is engaged by engaging the shoulder, isolating the opponent's biceps with pressing, and occasionally finishing with side pressure. It is hand-controlled hooked pressing. As you can see, you'll also note that his arm is close to his heart as he slowly extracts the soul from his prey with it. An anaconda kills its prey in this manner. Regardless, Devon is indeed scary now. His unique training method seems to pay off. Despite some people laughing at him, he wants blood. And he's going one by one until he gets back to Levon. Dennis will be the inflection point. If Devon beats Dennis, there's no stopping him except Levon.
Could you pin him without shoulder pressure?
Oh, yeah.